What's up, you guys? I'm Dan. This is Frugal Not Cheap, and today we'll be talking about how to track your spending. In a recent video, we looked at how to start saving. We also looked at how to make a budget. So we're kind of starting a little bit of a beginner's guide to personal finance, which I think is pretty neat. I'll probably make a playlist so that we can put all these sort of beginner type videos in there. But anyway, we had pointed out that, you've made this plan, you want to get started saving, and maybe you have a budget, or maybe you have an amount that you want to start putting away each month. One of the things that's really going to help you keep on track, of course, though, is to track your spending. So we can make all these wonderful plans in the world, but if we don't actually put them into action, then they're really for nothing, right? So when we talk about our budget, we need to actually keep track of our spending to make sure that we're actually falling in within our budgeted amounts for each of the different categories, or at least overall for the whole thing, right? So you could do a little bit of borrowing from this category into that category, but generally, obviously the most important thing is to make sure we're within budget overall for our entire monthly expenses, and then also, ideally though, also within each category itself. All right, so we've got to track our spending. How are we going to do that? Well, there are a number of different methods from the low tech to the high tech. But before we go into those in a little bit more depth, there's a sort of a helpful sports kind of analogy for this, where if you think of your budget, right, you've got income up here, and then you've got your expenses down there, at least in the template that we made. And you can think of the income side as playing offense. So we want to play a good offense, try to make as much income as we can. And if our income is big enough, then it can be really easy to really stack away the savings. But it's harder to control your income. At least it's harder to increase that income very rapidly, very directly. So much more easy and much more within your locus of control is to work on your spending. Reducing that spending is playing strong defense. So again, it's very easy to implement a strong defense right away. Some of the bigger things, like a housing or transportation, they're a little bit slower to change or more difficult to change, kind of more drastic. But when we're talking about all the little things, all the little luxuries, all this stuff, very easy to start implementing some strong defense, and while of course also working on your offense. All right, so let's look at this defense of tracking our spending and keeping all that stuff in line. How can we do it? The most old school way, reliable, of course, very low tech, is just pen and paper. So the idea is you'll just maybe keep a spending diary. You could get a little notebook and bring that along with you everywhere you go. And then every time you spend something, you jot down the amount and the category. And then at the end of the day, you could add all those things up, or maybe once a week you add them up. And certainly, once a month you want to put it all together and see how you fell into your monthly budget. So that can be a good way. Another way is just to keep receipts. Though sometimes you might find you get home and you look at the receipt and you're like, I have no idea what the heck that was. So that might not work out all the time. You might want to bring a pen still and write down what the item or the category was for that item. I even do that with my grocery store receipts. I'll get home and I'll make sure I categorize the items that I might not know what they are based on the description that's on there. So of course the food is easy. I just lump that all into food. But sometimes the home supplies and other items, then I just make a little note of what those are, or I log them very quickly so that I won't forget what they are in the future. So pen and paper is one way to go. Of course, the downsides here are that it's going to be very time intensive, and you're going to have to remember to do it every time. So it also takes a great deal of discipline and presence of mind in that way as well. And then computationally, it's a lot of work. You're going to have to add all these things up, and I don't know if I guess one thing you could do, so really old school, would be to use a calculator. If you want to take it a step up, what we could do is when we get home, then we could enter all these data into a spreadsheet. And so at least then the calculations would be done for us, and that would make life a little bit easier. And then everything's stored in kind of one nice, neat place. So that could be one step towards the increasing technology and making things easier for us. And you could even set up an online spreadsheet using either Microsoft Office or maybe Google Sheets. So there's an Excel online and there's Google Sheets online, and you could have the spreadsheet set up there. And if you've got a smartphone, then you could just enter these transactions into the sheet as you go about your day as well. So that's another way to kind of do this daily log. It's still going to be very intensive in terms of entering every transaction, but at least this this way, yeah, you'll be able to update the database all the time, and it'll be able to do the subtotals by category for you pretty easily if you know how to use spreadsheets a little bit. So these methods, I think, are really well, they're really good for people who don't spend cash very quickly. So what I mean by that is there are some people for whom cash just seems more precious to them, and they don't spend it as quickly. It doesn't burn a hole in their wallet the way that, say, credit cards or debit cards to them seem a little bit, I don't know, fake? I don't know, just easier to spend. So if you're the type is more spendy with cards than with cash, then you might want to use these methods because they're very cash friendly. Whereas if you're the kind of person that for whom it doesn't make a difference, or if you just don't use cash very much like myself, then other methods will be a lot easier to use. So something to keep in mind. Another reason that you might prefer cash is if you you find yourself getting into debt when you grab credit cards, then this would be a really powerful reason not to do that. You might even use the cash envelope system. So you could, budget out all your categories and then put that amount of money into an envelope for the week or for the month. And so then whenever you go to shop for this particular category, you just bring that envelope with you and then put the change back. And it's a lot of work, but some of these things can be good as sort of training wheels as you get going. And then later on, once you've built up the discipline, or you've just loosened up things in terms of increasing your income quite a bit relative to your expenses, or reduce those expenses quite a bit, then it might be a little bit easier to get going. But at the beginning, I think it can be helpful to take some of these measures. But whatever you do, it's got to be something that's sustainable for you and that you're actually going to implement. So, maybe try different methods, see what works out best for you. So again, what works out better for me is going to be things that leverage more technology in order to save time and also to prevent errors. So one of the problems with the spreadsheet, if you've ever worked with spreadsheets, you'll know is that you can easily break them. So, a formula just doesn't have the correct cell reference, or little things like that can happen, or you sort it and then it just breaks the whole thing. So you have to be very careful, and that's why I prefer to have things in a relational database. So luckily there are a lot of free solutions that have a relational database, that have good reporting, and they also will track all of your transactions automatically. So what are these solutions? They're software, things like Mint and Personal Capital and You Need a Budget. And then personally, I use Quicken. And then Quicken has also come out with an online product, a little bit more modern, called Simplify. So it's like the word simplify, but with an I instead of a Y to connote finance, I guess. I don't know. Whatever. I haven't checked it out yet, but apparently the initial reviews are pretty good, so it might be something worth checking out. But yeah, so the nice thing about all of these, though, is that as long as you're banking online, they're going to be downloading all the transactions from your bank automatically for you, and they'll automatically categorize them to some extent as well. So that's going to make life a lot easier too. But that's not going to work if you're a person that uses cash a lot, because those transactions don't get recorded by your bank, of course. So again, this is another place where it's important. Are you a cash person? Are you a credit card person? Do you want to, or a debit card person? Find a method that's going to work well for you, or change your habits if you think you can do that safely. Up to you. All right. There are a lot of reasons to switch to credit cards as well, in terms of points and all that kind of thing. But again, that depends on whether or not you're the person that gets into debt or not. All right. So these things will download all those transactions automatically. It makes life very simple. And let's just kind of run through the different options. I think the best one, if you're just getting going and you want to be doing budgeting type stuff, is to look at Mint. So Mint has a really good budgeting tool. It's also got the ability to set savings goals and to set some debt repayment goals. So it's got a good platform to do that. You can set those goals. You can track those goals. It'll let you know when you've accomplished them. And again, categorization's pretty good automatically. Maybe once a week or so, you'd have to go in there and make sure all the categories are done correctly. And then once a month, you'll want to go in and review and make sure that you've done what you needed to do to stay on track. And if not, what do you need to do in order to shape things up in the following month? So yeah, I think Mint is great, especially when you get going. The thing that Mint does not do well, though, is investments. I find it's really terrible at tracking investments. Maybe they've made some upgrades over the last couple of years. I don't know. But the last time that I tried it out, that was the case. And I looked at reviews and stuff more recently. And it seems like that still is the case as well. So if you're a little bit more advanced, and I shouldn't say advanced, but let's say that you've honed in your budget and your spending habits a little bit more, and you also care more about investments, then the next one to go to might be personal capital. So this is also free. Again, it's more of a focus on cash flow. It does kind of track your spending, but it doesn't have a strong budgeting kind of interface the way that Mint does, or at least last time I looked at it. But it's a lot more about long-term planning and investment, since of course it's an investment advisory firm that's providing the software. So it's got this great retirement planning tool that I think is actually quite neat. It does Monte Carlo simulations, so that's something you can check out. And it's also free, but with the catch that once your assets that it knows about gets to about, I think, $200,000 or maybe $250,000, something like that. Or it could be even a lower threshold, maybe 100,000, I'm not sure. Anyway, once you do that, they will try to schedule a call with you with an advisor in order to try to get you, of course, to use their services, for which they would earn some fees. And they do seem to offer some good services in terms of tax loss harvesting. But beyond that, I don't know. And as you know, I'm really more of a passive index fund, do-it-yourself kind of an investor. So that's what I do. That's my personal view. I'm not personally taking advantage of their services. If you did, that'd probably be fine. I don't know, but either way, it is a simple just say no thanks, I'm not interested, and that's it. You can continue to use the software. It's not like you're beholden to use their services or anything. It continues to be a free software that you can use. Now, of course, with both of these things, we don't know how long they're going to be around, so that can be a drawback. But you can always get your data back out from Personal Capital or from Mint as well. And they've both been around for quite a few years now. I'll put up here how long they've been around, so it's been quite some time. So you can feel pretty confident about that, I think. All right, so that's Mint and Personal Capital. Another one that's a big favorite among the Mr. Money Mustache crowd is called You Need a Budget. Everyone just says the acronym YNAB. This one is a zero-based budget, so it's going to really allocate every dollar that you have. I don't have personal experience with it. It is a subscription service, so this is the first one we're talking about that does incur a monthly or yearly cost. I'm sure the yearly subscription is cheaper than the monthly one. So that's one that you could look at. I've heard really good things about it. I haven't used it myself, but it sounds like it would be great for budgeting purposes, obviously, with a name like that. And then there's the one that I use, which is Quicken. So this is a subscription. I think it's about $60 a year, so it's a little bit pricey. I've been using it for many, many years. I used to use a software called Microsoft Money, but they discontinued that, I think in around 2007. They had like a Sunset Edition. You could still get that free Sunset Edition. It's a good piece of software, but it wouldn't work well with there's no automatic downloads from your banks. You could do them manually, but they might have changed the file formats by now. So yeah, I wouldn't recommend it, but I really love that piece of software, but they discontinued it. And so I started with Quicken, and yeah, it's a desktop application. It's fairly heavyweight and a little bit clunky, and it does tend to have bugs every now and then. It won't connect to one out of the financial institutions, but they'll fix it after a few days or whatever. So it's not perfect, but it is really powerful. It does all the budgeting. It does tax planning. It does your retirement planning. It does the debt repayment if you're at that stage. It can track cash accounts separately from your credit and your debit accounts and all that. It does your investment accounts really well. You can enter in dividend reinvestment and sales by lot, and it can track FIFO, LIFO, and average cost or individual lots like I do. So it's a really powerful piece of software. It'll even give you your credit score. I really like it. This video is not sponsored by anybody, obviously, but yeah, just wanted to say that. But I really like it. It is, again, not as easy to get into, so you'd want to be more, if you're comfortable with computers and all that stuff, then I think it's a better option. But if you want just a simple, streamlined, more modern interface, then probably look at Simplify. You need a budget, maybe, though I don't know for sure, but Mint and Personal Capital as well. But again, yeah, I love Quicken. Great piece of software. I've been using it for years. And, the main thing, though, of course, is, again, it's something that I actually use. So I update my transactions roughly about weekly or so and keep an eye on things. And then I'll do a monthly review, and then I'll do a big review at the end of the year just to make sure that my annual budget is still realistic given my lifestyle. Or conversely, if I need to change my lifestyle back to what my budget should be, right? So I'll look at that, and I find it very helpful in order to keep me on track towards my financial goals. And I hope that this video is also helpful for you to help you track your spending and track your progress towards your financial goals as well. So if it was, and if you like this video, hit the like button. If you'd like to see more videos about financial independence, frugality, investing, and maybe travel one day, hit the subscribe button. Ring the notification bell if you'd like to know when new videos are posted. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.